I had 30 seconds to decide if I was willing to die for a child I'd never met. The gun pressed against my temple was ice cold. Behind me, a little girl whimpered. She was still clutching my uniform, refusing to let go. "Walk away," the man whispered. "This isn't your fight, cleaner." But I'd seen what they'd done to her. The cage. The bruises. I couldn't unsee it. I looked into the terrified eyes of the little girl. She hadn't spoken since I found her, but her grip on my hand said everything words couldn't. How did a night janitor like me end up in the crosshairs of the most dangerous man in the city? It started with a sound, a soft cry behind a door I should never have opened. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story with me, smash that subscribe button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because, trust me, tomorrow I'm bringing you another story that's going to hit just as hard as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now, back to the story. I was 24, a nursing student drowning in debt, working night shifts as a contract cleaner to keep my head above water. That night, I was assigned to Dahan Logistics, a massive shipping facility at the edge of the harbor. "Sector A is clear," I whispered to myself, checking my watch. One more hour and I could go home to my tiny apartment, catch 3 hours of sleep, then drag myself to morning classes. My back hurt. My feet hurt. Everything hurt. But tuition wouldn't pay itself, and cleaning paid better than waiting tables. At least at night, nobody was around to bother me. I pushed my cart down the empty hallway, the wheels squeaking on the polished floor. My playlist had ended, but I was too tired to pick a new one. The silence of the warehouse wrapped around me like a blanket. That's when I heard it. A soft thump. Then another. I stopped, thinking it was just the building settling. Old warehouses made weird noises all the time. But then I heard something else. A whimper. I pulled my earbuds out completely, straining to hear. It came again, a sound so small and scared it made the hair on my arms stand up. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing. No answer. The sound seemed to be coming from behind a heavy metal door marked, "Restricted, no entry." In my 3 weeks cleaning this place, I'd never once opened that door. Rules were rules, and I needed this job. But that sound, it wasn't machinery. It wasn't the building. It sounded like a child. "This is stupid," I muttered, reaching for the handle anyway. This is how people die in horror movies. The door was unlocked. It swung open with a low groan, revealing darkness. I fumbled for my phone, turning on the flashlight. The beam cut through the gloom, showing stacks of shipping crates and pallets. The room smelled musty, like nobody had been in here for weeks. "Hello?" I called again, softer this time. "Is anyone in here?" Another whimper, clearer now. From the back corner. I should have called security. I should have walked away. But something pulled me forward, step by cautious step, my phone light bouncing off the walls. What I saw next is burned into my memory forever. Behind a stack of pallets was a large wire crate. The kind meant for large dogs. And inside, curled up on the metal floor, was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 5 or 6. Her school uniform was torn and dirty, her dark hair matted. When my light hit her face, she squeezed her eyes shut and curled tighter into a ball. "Oh my God," I whispered, rushing forward. "Oh my God, sweetie." The cage was padlocked. The little girl opened her eyes just enough to see me, then shrank back. "It's okay," I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the panic racing through me. "I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to help you." She didn't respond. Just watched me with huge, frightened eyes. I looked around frantically for something to break the lock. In the corner, I spotted a metal pry bar left by a construction crew. "I'm going to get you out," I told her, grabbing the bar. "Cover your ears, okay? This might be loud." Amazingly, she did as I asked, tiny hands pressing over her ears. I jammed the pry bar into the padlock loop and pulled with everything I had. My arms strained, sweat breaking out on my forehead. The lock was old and rusty, thank God. With a sharp crack, it broke open. I threw the cage door wide and reached in. The little girl flinched at first, but when I didn't grab her, just held out my hand, she uncurled slightly. "You're safe now," I said softly. "I promise." "Can you come out?" She didn't move. "That's okay. Take your time." I sat down on the concrete floor, making myself smaller, less threatening. "My name is Sarah. I'm a cleaner here, but I'm also a nursing student." "Do you know what that means?" "It means I help people who are hurt." Her eyes never left my face. "Are you hurt anywhere?" I asked. "You can nod or shake your head." After a long moment, she gave a tiny nod. "Can I see?" "I won't touch without asking." Another tiny nod. Slowly, she extended her arm. In the flashlight beam, I could see bruises around her wrist, like someone had grabbed her too hard. Anger flashed through me, hot and fierce. Who would do this to a child? "That looks painful," I said, keeping my voice calm despite the rage building inside me. "I have some water in my cart. Would you like a drink?" She nodded again, more eagerly this time. "I'll need to go get it." "I'll be right back, okay? Count to 30, and I'll be back." I stood up slowly, backing away. The moment I was out of sight, I sprinted to my cart, grabbed my water bottle and phone, and ran back. She was still there, still in the cage, but sitting up now. When she saw me, something flickered in her eyes. Relief, maybe. I cracked open the water bottle and handed it to her. She drank desperately, water dripping down her chin. While she drank, I unlocked my phone. I needed to call the police. This was way above my pay grade. That's when I noticed I had no signal. The thick warehouse walls blocked it completely. "Sweetie," I said gently, "we need to get you out of here. Out of this room, at least, so I can call for help. Is that okay?" She hesitated, then reached one small hand toward me. My heart cracked wide open. I reached back, letting her decide when to make contact. Her fingers were ice cold when they touched mine. "That's it," I encouraged. "You're so brave." Slowly, so slowly, she crawled forward, out of the cage. When she was clear, she stumbled, her legs probably numb from being confined. Without thinking, I caught her. She tensed in my arms, then, to my surprise, collapsed against me, her tiny body shaking with silent sobs. "I've got you," I whispered, my own eyes filling with tears. "You're safe now." I stood carefully, cradling her against my chest. She couldn't have weighed more than 40 pounds, but she clung to me with surprising strength, her face buried in my neck. I carried her toward the door, mind racing. "Get to the main area. Call 911. Stay with her until help came." Simple plan. It should have worked. But as I pushed the door open with my shoulder, I came face to face with a man in a black suit. He wasn't warehouse security, his suit was too expensive, his stance too dangerous. His eyes flicked from me to the child in my arms, and his hand moved to his jacket. That's when I saw the gun. "Stop right there," he said softly. And just like that, my simple plan collapsed. I had 30 seconds to decide if I was willing to die for a child I'd never met. Looking down at her terrified face, I realized it wasn't even a choice. "No," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "You'll have to shoot me first." The storage room was pitch black. I used my phone flashlight, moving between towering shipping crates. The crying had stopped, a silence more terrifying than any sound. "Hello?" I called softly. Is anyone there? Something glinted in the corner. I moved closer, and my breath caught in my throat. It was a cage. A dog cage. And inside. My flashlight dropped from my hand. Inside, curled on the metal floor, was a little girl in a torn school uniform. She was shivering violently, eyes squeezed shut. "Oh, sweetie," I gasped. I'd seen a lot working nights in the city's forgotten corners, drug deals, homelessness, desperation, but never this. Never a child in a cage. Meanwhile, across the city, in a glass-walled penthouse I couldn't even imagine, Kim Jae-wook was living his own nightmare. While I was breaking open that rusty padlock with a pry bar, Jae-wook was tearing the city apart to find his daughter. His security team had just picked up a signal from the kidnapper's phone, leading him straight to me. I didn't know his name then. I didn't know he was the Kim Jae-wook, the man whose face appeared on billboards across the city, whose company owned half the skyline. All I knew was that somewhere out there, this little girl had people who must be worried sick about her. The lock finally gave way with a snap that echoed through the dark room. I threw open the cage door and reached inside, not caring that my uniform was getting filthy. The little girl, Hannah, though I didn't know her name yet, flinched away from me. "It's okay," I said, keeping my voice gentle like I'd learned in my pediatric nursing rotation. "I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to get you out." She was freezing. I sat down on a wooden crate and wrapped her inside my thick wool coat, buttoning it around her tiny body. I rubbed her arms, trying to generate warmth. "I've got you," I hummed, rocking her back and forth. "You're safe. The bad men are gone." For the first time, she stopped shaking. She buried her face in my shoulder and let out a long, shaky breath. That's when the warehouse doors crashed open. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness like searchlights. "Security," a voice boomed. "Hands up." I gasped, instinctively turning to shield the child with my body. The sudden noise made her clutch my uniform harder, tiny fingers digging into the fabric. "Don't shoot," I shouted back. "There's a child here. A little girl." The flashlight beams lowered slightly. I squinted against the light, trying to make out the figures behind it. These weren't regular warehouse guards. They wore suits and moved with military precision. "I found her in a cage," I continued, my voice shaking. "She needs a doctor. Please." One of the men stepped forward, speaking into a radio clip to his shoulder. "Sir, we found her. Storage room B. She's with someone. A woman." From behind the wall of security men, a different figure emerged. Even in the dim light, I could tell his suit cost more than my yearly tuition. He moved with the authority of someone used to being in charge, but his face showed nothing but raw fear. "Hannah." His voice broke on the name. The little girl in my arms stiffened. Slowly, she turned her head from my shoulder, peeking out at the man. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then, the girl reached one small hand out toward him. "Daddy," she whispered, so quietly I barely heard it. The man, Jae-wook, rushed forward, dropping to his knees in front of us. His hands hovered over his daughter, like he was afraid she might disappear if he touched her. "Is she hurt?" he asked me, his eyes never leaving the child. "I don't think she's injured," I replied softly. "But she's cold and scared. She needs to see a doctor." He nodded, finally reaching out to stroke his daughter's hair. "I have medical staff waiting." "The best." Of course he did. Now that I could see him clearly, I recognized him from the news. Kim Jae-wook, CEO of K Group, one of the richest men in the country. "Thank you," he said, finally looking at me, really looking at me. His eyes were red-rimmed from what I guessed were sleepless nights. "You found her. You saved her." "I just heard her crying," I said, suddenly self-conscious in my cheap cleaner's uniform. Anyone would have done the same. No, he said firmly. They wouldn't. He tried to take Hannah from my arms, but she whimpered and gripped my uniform tighter. It's okay, baby, he soothed. You're safe now. But she wouldn't let go of me. Jae-wook looked conflicted, then made a decision. What's your name? Sarah. Sarah Williams. Sarah, he said, like he was committing it to memory. My daughter seems unwilling to let you go. Would you come with us? Just until she feels safe? I blinked, surprised. I need to finish my shift. My supervisor will. I'll handle your supervisor, he interrupted. Please. She's been through. His voice caught. She's been through a nightmare. And right now, for whatever reason, she trusts you. I looked down at the little girl in my arms. Her eyes were heavy with exhaustion, but her grip on my uniform hadn't loosened. Something in my chest tightened. Okay, I said. I'll come. Jae-wook nodded to one of his security team, who immediately draped a blanket around both me and Hannah. Another took my cleaning cart keys. We'll handle this, the security man said. Mr. Kim wants you with his daughter. As Jae-wook led me through the warehouse toward the exit, I realized my simple life had just become very, very complicated. But looking down at the child who'd finally stopped trembling in my arms, I knew I couldn't have made any other choice. What I didn't know then was that this night, this random assignment to clean a warehouse at the edge of the harbor, would change everything. Not just for Hannah or her father, but for me. And that the danger was far from over. I gasped, clutching the child tighter. I turned, using my body to shield her from the blinding lights. My heart hammered against my ribs. Don't shoot. I yelled, my voice echoing off the metal walls. There's a child here. Don't you dare scare her. The security team paused. They lowered their flashlights just enough that I could see their faces, stern, dangerous men in black suits. Not warehouse security. Something else entirely. Then the wall of guards parted, and a man stepped through. Even exhausted and terrified, I recognized him instantly. Everyone in the city would. Kim Jae-wook. The CEO of K Group. His face was on billboards, buildings, magazines. But the man I saw wasn't the cold business titan from the news. His perfect suit couldn't hide the wild panic in his eyes as he scanned the room, looking for threats, looking for Hannah. His voice cracked on the name, revealing the father beneath the power. The little girl peeked out from my coat. She didn't run to him. She was too exhausted. She simply reached one small hand toward him while the other gripped my uniform like it was a lifeline. Jae-wook rushed forward, falling to his knees in front of me. Here was one of the richest men in Asia, kneeling on dirty concrete, reaching for his daughter's face with trembling hands. She's okay, I said softly, though my own heart was racing. She's just cold. And hungry. Jae-wook looked up at me. Really looked at me for the first time. Not as a cleaner. Not as someone invisible. But as the woman holding his world in her arms. You found her, he said, voice thick with emotion I never thought men like him could feel. I heard her crying, I replied simply. I couldn't leave her. His eyes changed then. Something calculating flickered behind the relief. What is your name? He asked. Sarah. Sarah Williams. He extended his hand, not to shake mine, but to help me stand. My daughter is refusing to let go of your coat. And I cannot risk her safety by separating you right now. I have to finish my shift, I stammered, suddenly remembering my reality. Jae-wook shook his head. No. You have done enough cleaning. You saved my world, Sarah. He signaled his team to form a protective circle around us. You are coming with us, he said, not a question, not quite an order. I need you to help me get her home. And after that, we will discuss your future. I looked down at Hannah, who squeezed my hand. Those big, silent eyes begged me not to leave. Okay, I whispered. I'll come. As we walked toward the exit, I saw my abandoned mop and bucket. My old life. I didn't know it then, but I would never return to it. What I also didn't know? Someone was watching us leave. Someone who wasn't finished with Hannah, or now, with me. The convoy of black SUVs waited outside like a funeral procession. One of the security men opened a door, and Jae-wook gestured for me to get in, still carrying Hannah. I hesitated. Everything was happening so fast. My things, I said weakly. My backpack has my wallet, my keys. Where? Jae-wook asked. Employee locker room. Number 42. He nodded to one of his men, who disappeared back into the building. The inside of the SUV was like nothing I'd ever experienced. Soft leather seats. Climate control. A mini fridge. It smelled expensive, like new car and subtle cologne. I sat with Hannah still in my arms, her head heavy against my shoulder. She was fighting to stay awake, her eyelids drooping. Jae-wook slid in beside us, leaving careful space. He looked at his daughter with such longing it made my chest ache. How long has she been missing? I asked quietly. 26 hours, 14 minutes, he answered without checking his watch. She disappeared from her school. The cameras were disabled. Professional job. The way he said it, flat, factual, made me realize he was barely holding himself together. Have you called the police? I asked. Something cold flashed in his eyes. They were notified. But I have other resources. The security man returned with my beat-up backpack. I'd never been so aware of how shabby my things were until I saw them against the luxury of this car. As we pulled away, the warehouse growing smaller in the rear window, I felt like I was being carried away from my own life. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Probably my supervisor wondering where I was. Or maybe my roommate Kelly, who'd be worried if I didn't come home. But I couldn't reach for it, not with Hannah finally sleeping in my arms. You can answer that, Jae-wook said, noticing my dilemma. It's okay. It can wait. He studied me for a moment. You must have questions. I had about 1,000, but I settled on the most important one. Who would do this to her? To you? His jaw tightened. I have enemies. In business, in other matters. So this was about hurting you? Through her? The thought made me sick. Or ransom. We received no demands yet. He reached over and gently brushed a strand of hair from Hannah's forehead. She is all I have. Something in his voice made me look closer. There were lines around his eyes I hadn't noticed in the magazine photos. Grief, maybe. Her mother? I asked softly. Gone. 2 years ago. Cancer. His words were clipped, like each one cost him. I'm sorry. He nodded once, then changed the subject. You're a student? I blinked, surprised he'd noticed the textbook corner poking out of my backpack. Nursing. 3rd year. And you clean at night to pay for it, he concluded. Not all of us have trust funds, I said, then immediately regretted my tone. This man's child had just been kidnapped, and here I was getting defensive. But instead of being offended, he almost smiled. Direct. I appreciate that. The city lights blurred outside as we moved into districts I rarely visited, areas where the buildings got taller, the streets cleaner. We were heading into the wealthy heart of the city. Where are we going? I asked. My home, he replied. Hannah needs to be examined by a doctor. And you? Me? You need to tell me exactly how you found her. Every detail. The SUV pulled up to the tallest building I'd ever seen, all glass and steel, reaching into the night sky. Not the K Group headquarters I'd seen in photos, but a residential tower that screamed money and power. The vehicle didn't stop at the main entrance but continued to an underground garage with a security checkpoint. The guard recognized Jae-wook instantly and waved us through. "We'll take the private elevator," Jae-wook said as we parked. "Can you carry her?" I nodded, though my arms were starting to ache. As we exited the vehicle, his security team formed a protective circle around us. One of them tried to take my backpack. "I've got it," I said, surprising myself with how firm I sounded. The private elevator required a fingerprint scan and a code. As we ascended, I looked down at the sleeping child in my arms. How had this happened? 24 hours ago, I was just another struggling student. Now I was carrying a billionaire's daughter in a private elevator. The doors opened directly into an apartment. No, not an apartment. A penthouse that took up the entire top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city spread below like a blanket of stars. The space was minimalist, all clean lines and expensive materials, but cold somehow. Unlived in. A woman in medical scrubs was waiting. Behind her, a man in a chef's uniform hovered near what looked like a kitchen. "Dr. Park," Jae-wook said. "This is my daughter. And this is Sarah Williams. She found Hannah." The doctor looked at me with surprise, then focused on the child. "Let's examine her in her room." I followed them down a hallway, past rooms that seemed to stretch forever. We entered a child's bedroom that looked like it came from a magazine, every toy, every piece of furniture perfectly arranged. But something about it felt wrong. Too perfect. Too unused. "You can put her on the bed," the doctor said. I tried to set Hannah down, but she whimpered in her sleep, clutching my uniform tighter. "I'll stay with her," I said. The doctor nodded. As she examined Hannah, I took in the room. A photo on the nightstand caught my eye, a beautiful Korean woman holding a laughing toddler. Hannah and her mother. "No signs of physical trauma," the doctor murmured, checking Hannah's reflexes. "Dehydrated, though. And exhausted." "She was in a cage," I said, my voice breaking. "Like an animal." The doctor's eyes widened, then her professional mask returned. "I'll need to run more tests when she wakes. For now, let her sleep." After the doctor left, I sat on the edge of the bed, still holding Hannah's hand. Jae-wook stood in the doorway, watching us. "You should rest too," he said. "I've had a guest room prepared." "I can't leave her," I said. "She might wake up scared in a strange place." "This is her home," he said, something like shame crossing his face. "Though she rarely sleeps in here." "Where does she sleep?" "With her nanny." "Or..." He hesitated. "In my room. Since her mother died, she has nightmares." The cold, powerful CEO from the magazine seemed very far away from this man, a father struggling with grief and a traumatized child. "I'll stay with her," I repeated. "Just for tonight." He studied me for a long moment. "Why are you doing this? You don't know us. You've done more than enough already." I looked down at Hannah, at her small hand in mine. "Because she held on to me," I said simply. "And I can't let go first." Something shifted in his expression, surprise, respect, maybe both. "We'll talk in the morning," he said. "About what happens next." As he turned to leave, I called after him. "Mr. Kim?" He paused. "Whoever did this, they're still out there." His shoulders stiffened. "Not for long," he said, and the coldness in his voice made me shiver. The door closed, leaving me alone with Hannah. Outside the window, the city twinkled, distant and beautiful. Two different worlds, mine and Jae-wook's, had just collided. And nothing would ever be the same. The convoy of black SUVs moved through the sleeping city like a funeral procession. I sat in the back of one, still cradling Hannah, who had finally fallen asleep against my chest. Across from me, Jae-wook made calls in rapid-fire Korean, his voice low and dangerous. I caught words like find them, and what I assumed were amounts of money. Very large amounts. I stared out the window as we crossed into a part of the city I'd only seen in magazines. Glass towers. Doormen. Streets so clean they gleamed. We pulled up to the tallest building, all glass and steel, reaching for the stars. Jae-wook's private security ushered us through a hidden entrance and into an elevator that required his fingerprint. My home, he said simply as the elevator shot upward. Home. My entire apartment could fit in this elevator. The doors opened directly into a penthouse that looked more like a museum than a place where people lived. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the city spread below us like a blanket of stars. The bedroom is this way, Jae-wook said, leading me down a hallway lined with artwork worth more than my entire education. We entered a room painted soft pink. A child's paradise with everything a little girl could want. Except, I realized, the comfort of familiarity. The room felt unlived in. Pristine. I laid Hannah gently on her bed. She whimpered in her sleep, her small hands still clutching my uniform. She hasn't slept in here since her mother died, Jae-wook said quietly. She hasn't spoken since then either. I looked at him, surprised by this vulnerability. How long? I asked. 2 years. The doctors call it selective mutism. Trauma. If you're enjoying this story so far, hit that subscribe button right now. Seriously, I pour my heart into these stories, and subscribing means you'll never miss what happens next. Plus, I'd love to know where you're watching from, so drop that in the comments. Okay, now let's get back to how my ordinary life turned upside down in a single night. I nodded, my nursing training kicking in. She needs consistency now. Familiar faces. Which is why you are here, he said, his businessman tone returning. My daughter trusts you. I need that trust. Mr. Kim, Jae-wook, he corrected. Jae-wook. I'm just a nursing student who cleans floors. I'm not qualified to. You are exactly qualified, he interrupted. A nursing student who was brave enough to open that door. Compassionate enough to comfort her. And now, the only person besides me she will allow to touch her. He stepped closer. I am prepared to offer you a position as Hannah's caretaker. The salary would cover your tuition, your living expenses, and considerably more. My head spun. Was this really happening? What about the police? The kidnappers? I asked. His face darkened. I will handle that. Something in his tone made me shiver. I suddenly remembered the rumors about Kim Jae-wook. That K-group wasn't just legitimate business. That he had connections that reached into shadows I couldn't imagine. Stay tonight, he said, softening his tone. For Hannah. We can discuss details tomorrow. As if on cue, Hannah stirred, reaching out blindly. I took her tiny hand in mine. I'll stay, I said. What I didn't say, I wasn't sure I had a choice anymore. Later, after Hannah was settled and I'd been shown to a guest room bigger than my entire apartment, I stood at the window looking down at the city. My phone buzzed with a text from my supervisor, "You're fired." I should have felt panic. Instead, I felt something else. Like I'd crossed a threshold and couldn't go back. That's when I noticed the reflection in the glass. A folder on the nightstand that hadn't been there earlier. I turned and opened it. Inside was a dossier. On me. My grades. My debts. My family. My entire life laid out in clinical detail. And a single note in elegant handwriting: I need to know if I can trust you. My hands trembled as I flipped through the pages. Everything was there: my parents' deaths in the car accident when I was 18, my struggle to pay for school, even my allergies and blood type. He'd done this background check in a matter of hours. I should have been outraged at the invasion of privacy. Instead, I felt a chill. This was the real Kim Jae-wook, a man who acquired information as easily as others bought groceries. A soft knock made me jump. I closed the folder quickly. "Come in," I called. A middle-aged Korean woman entered, carrying folded clothes. "I am Mrs. Park, the housekeeper," she said with a slight bow. "Mr. Kim asked me to bring you these. For sleeping." I accepted the stack, silk pajamas that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Thank you," I said. "I appreciate it." She nodded, her eyes taking in my uniform, my messy hair, the smudge of dirt still on my cheek from the warehouse floor. "The bathroom is through there," she said, pointing to a door I hadn't noticed. "Everything you need should be inside." As she turned to leave, I found myself asking, "How long have you worked for Mr. Kim?" She paused. "Since before Hannah was born." "What happened to her mother?" "If you don't mind me asking." Mrs. Park's face softened slightly. "Cancer. Very aggressive." Miss Seo-yun was a kind woman. Her death, it broke something in this house. And Hannah stopped speaking? She nodded. "The day of the funeral." "Not a word since." Her eyes met mine. "Until tonight, Mr. Kim says." "She spoke to you?" "Just a little," I admitted. "When she was scared." Mrs. Park studied me, as if trying to figure out what made me special. "Mr. Kim has hired many nannies. Many therapists. None have reached her." I felt the weight of expectation settling on my shoulders. "I'm just a student. I don't know if I can help her." "You already have," she said simply. Then, with another slight bow, she left. The bathroom was bigger than my bedroom at home, with a shower that had more settings than my car. I washed away the grime of the warehouse, letting the hot water soothe my aching muscles. I hadn't realized how exhausted I was until that moment. As I changed into the borrowed pajamas, I caught my reflection in the mirror. I looked the same, but I didn't feel the same. 24 hours ago, I'd been worrying about an upcoming exam and whether I could make rent. Now I was in a billionaire's penthouse, offered a job I wasn't qualified for, and the only person a traumatized child seemed to trust. I returned to the window, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there were the people who had put Hannah in that cage. People Jae-wook was hunting with a cold determination that frightened me. My phone buzzed again. "Kelly, my roommate, are you okay? Boss called looking for you." I hesitated, then typed, "I'm fine." Something came up. "We'll explain tomorrow." How could I explain any of this? I was about to climb into the ridiculously comfortable-looking bed when I heard it, a small whimper from down the hall. "Hannah." Without thinking, I rushed out of my room, following the sound. I found her sitting up in bed, eyes wide with terror, silent tears streaming down her face. "Hey, sweetie," I said softly, sitting beside her. "Bad dream?" She nodded, reaching for my hand. "I get those too sometimes," I told her. "Want me to stay until you fall asleep again?" Another nod, more insistent. I climbed onto the bed beside her, careful to give her space. To my surprise, she immediately curled against me, her small body still trembling slightly. "You're safe," I whispered, stroking her hair. "No more cages. No more scary places." Gradually, her breathing steadied, and she drifted back to sleep. I should have returned to my room, but I couldn't bring myself to leave her. Not yet. I must have dozed off, because the next thing I knew, gray morning light was filtering through the windows. Hannah was still asleep beside me, but someone else was in the room. Jae-wook stood in the doorway, watching us. He was already dressed in an impeccable suit, but the shadows under his eyes suggested he hadn't slept. She had a nightmare, I explained quietly. He nodded. She has them every night. His eyes lingered on his daughter's peaceful face. This is the first time she's slept through till morning since her mother died. The weight of that statement hung in the air between us. The folder, I said. Was that a test? Yes, he answered, unapologetic. I needed to know who was sleeping in my home. Near my daughter. And? Do you trust me now? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You have no criminal record. No suspicious connections. A history of working multiple jobs to pay your own way. And you ran toward danger to save a child you didn't know. He paused. Yes, Sarah Williams. I think I can trust you. Good, I said, carefully extracting myself from Hannah's grip. Because I have questions of my own. I expected you would. He gestured for me to follow him. As I passed him in the doorway, he added quietly, thank you. For staying with her. I looked back at Hannah, sleeping peacefully in her pink bedroom that didn't feel like hers. A child who had lost her mother, her voice, and now her sense of safety. I wouldn't be anywhere else, I said, and meant it. And that's how I found myself, a night janitor from the wrong side of the city, having breakfast with Kim Jae-wook in his penthouse, about to negotiate the terms of my new life in a gilded cage of his making. I woke to sunlight streaming through windows larger than my old apartment's walls. For a moment, I forgot where I was, then it all came rushing back. The warehouse. The cage. Hannah. Jae-wook. I found clothes laid out for me, designer items with tags still attached. They fit perfectly. Of course they did. He had my entire life in a folder. I made my way through the penthouse, following the sound of quiet voices. I found Jae-wook in what appeared to be a home office, speaking intensely with a man in a suit. They stopped abruptly when they saw me. Sarah, Jae-wook said, his face unreadable. This is Min-ho, my head of security. Min-ho studied me with the cold calculation of someone assessing a threat. I recognized him from the warehouse. He'd been the first through the door. Where's Hannah? I asked. Still sleeping, Jae-wook replied. The doctor gave her a mild sedative. She needs rest. Doctor? When? At 4 a.m. You were asleep. She's fine. No physical injuries. Min-ho handed Jae-wook a tablet. We've identified 2 of them. Low-level muscle, not the brains. Find them, Jae-wook said. The coldness in his voice sent a shiver down my spine. Min-ho nodded and left, giving me one last assessing look. You should eat, Jae-wook said, gesturing toward what I assumed was the kitchen. I followed him into a space that looked like it belonged in a magazine. A woman in a uniform was preparing food. Mrs. Park is my housekeeper, Jae-wook explained. She'll show you around later. The housekeeper gave me a curious look but said nothing. Over breakfast, the most elaborate meal I'd ever seen, Jae-wook laid out his offer. A position as Hannah's primary caretaker. A salary that made me choke on my orange juice. A room in the penthouse. Private tutoring so I could complete my nursing degree. Why? I finally asked. Why me? You could hire anyone. Professional nannies. Child psychologists. I have. None of them connected with Hannah. None of them were there when she needed someone most. His eyes met mine. None of them were you. There was something he wasn't saying. I could feel it. What aren't you telling me? I asked. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Direct. I like that. He sighed. The kidnapping wasn't random. Someone targeted my daughter specifically. You think it's someone you know? I know it is. His knuckles whitened around his coffee cup. And until I find out who, Hannah remains in danger. As does anyone close to her. The implication hit me. Including me. He nodded once. I can protect you here. Nowhere else. A gilded cage for us both. Later, after checking on the still sleeping Hannah, I wandered the penthouse. It felt like a museum, beautiful but unlived in. No family photos. No mementos. Just expensive emptiness. I found myself in what must have been Jae-wook's office. I shouldn't have been snooping, but something pulled me there. On his desk was a framed photo, the only personal item I'd seen in the entire place. A beautiful Korean woman holding a laughing toddler. Hannah and her mother. Behind it, a wall of surveillance monitors showed every angle of the penthouse, the building, the street below. One monitor caught my eye. Footage from last night, the warehouse. I watched myself finding Hannah, breaking open the cage, comforting her. Had he been watching me even then? I leaned closer, and that's when I saw it. In the corner of the frame, just for a second. A face I recognized. Someone who should not have been there. Someone who worked in this very building. Finding anything interesting? I spun around. Mrs. Park stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable. I got lost. Mr. Kim doesn't allow anyone in his office, she said coldly. Even his guests. The way she said guests made my skin crawl. I'm sorry, Sarah? Hannah's small voice called from somewhere in the apartment. I pushed past Mrs. Park, heart racing, not just from being caught snooping, but from what I'd seen on that monitor. Someone close to Jae-wook was involved in his daughter's kidnapping. And I was now living under the same roof. I hurried down the hallway, trying to get my breathing under control before I reached Hannah. The last thing she needed was to see me frightened. She was standing in the doorway of her bedroom, rubbing sleep from her eyes. She wore pink pajamas that matched her room, her dark hair a tangled mess around her small face. When she saw me, she reached out both arms. I knelt down and she walked straight into my embrace, burying her face in my shoulder. My heart melted and hardened at the same time, melted for this child, hardened against whoever had put her in that cage. Good morning, sweetie, I said, trying to sound normal. Did you sleep okay? She nodded against my shoulder. Are you hungry? Mrs. Park made breakfast. She pulled back, her face scrunching up at the mention of the housekeeper. You don't like Mrs. Park? I asked softly. Hannah shook her head, then made a gesture with her hand, fingers pinched together, moving to her mouth. She tells you to be quiet? Hannah nodded vigorously, relief in her eyes that I'd understood. A chill ran through me. The face I'd seen on the monitor. Mrs. Park's cold reaction to finding me in the office. Her dismissive way of referring to me as a guest. Hannah, I said carefully, has Mrs. Park ever been mean to you? She didn't nod or shake her head. Instead, she looked down at her feet, then back up at me with eyes suddenly too old for her face. She took my hand and squeezed it, as if trying to tell me something she couldn't say. It's okay, I assured her. You're safe now. I won't let anyone hurt you. The promise felt both necessary and impossible. How could I protect her when I didn't know who the enemy was? I helped Hannah dress, then led her to the kitchen, keeping her small hand firmly in mine. Mrs. Park was still there, wiping down counters with sharp, efficient movements. She smiled when she saw Hannah, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Good morning, Miss Hannah, she said. Would you like some breakfast? Hannah pressed closer to my side. We'll just grab some fruit, I said, reaching for an apple from the bowl on the counter. We'll eat in the living room. Mrs. Park's lips thinned with disapproval. Mr. Kim prefers meals at the table. I'm sure he'll make an exception today, I replied, keeping my tone light despite the tension crackling between us. As we walked away, I felt Mrs. Park's eyes boring into my back. In the living room, I settled Hannah on the couch and cut the apple into slices for her. "Hannah," I said gently, "I need to ask you something important. Can you try to answer me?" She nodded, watching me warily. "Did you see Mrs. Park at the place where I found you? At the warehouse?" Her eyes widened. She didn't nod, but she didn't need to. Her reaction told me everything. "Was she one of the people who put you in the cage?" Hannah shook her head frantically. "But she was there? She saw you there?" A small, hesitant nod. My mind raced. If Mrs. Park had been at the warehouse, if she'd seen Hannah in that cage and done nothing. "Sarah." I jumped at Jae-wook's voice. He stood in the doorway, his expression impossible to read. "I need to speak with you," he said. "In private." Hannah clutched my arm, shaking her head. "It's okay," I told her. "I'll be right back. Stay here and finish your apple, okay?" She reluctantly let go. I followed Jae-wook down the hall, back to his office. The door closed behind us with a soft click. "You were in here earlier," he said. Not a question. "Yes," I admitted. "No point in lying. I'm sorry for snooping." "What did you see?" I hesitated. What if I was wrong? What if I was putting Hannah, and myself, in more danger? But I thought of Hannah's face when I mentioned Mrs. Park. The fear in her eyes. On the security footage from the warehouse, I said carefully. "I saw Mrs. Park. She was there." Jae-wook's face didn't change, but something hardened in his eyes. "Are you certain?" "Yes." And Hannah confirmed it. She made a gesture like someone telling her to be quiet. When I asked if it was Mrs. Park, she got scared. He turned to the wall of monitors, typing something on a keyboard. The screens flickered, showing different angles of the warehouse. He rewound the footage, stopping at the moment I found Hannah. "There," I said, pointing to a shadowy figure in the background. "That's her. She's wearing different clothes, but that's her face." Jae-wook zoomed in. The image was grainy, but clear enough to see Mrs. Park's distinctive features. "Min-ho," he said into a small device on his wrist. His voice was calm, but carried an undercurrent of danger that made me step back. "Mrs. Park. My office. Now." He turned to me. "Go back to Hannah. Keep her in the living room." "What are you going to do?" "Find out if my housekeeper of 10 years helped kidnap my daughter." His jaw tightened. "And if she did, make her tell me who she's working for." The cold determination in his voice frightened me more than any shouting could have. "Jae-wook," I said, touching his arm. "Remember Hannah is here. Whatever you do." "I won't forget who I am," he said quietly. "Or what I'm capable of." That was what worried me. I returned to Hannah, forcing a smile I didn't feel. "How about we watch a movie?" I suggested, desperate to keep her distracted. She nodded, curling against my side as I found a children's movie on the massive TV. But my mind wasn't on talking animals or colorful adventures. It was on what was happening in that office. 10 minutes later, I heard raised voices. A crash. Then silence. Hannah tensed beside me, her eyes wide with fear. "It's okay," I lied. "Just the TV." She didn't believe me. Neither did I. A few moments later, Min-ho appeared in the doorway. His face was expressionless, but there was a new tension in his shoulders. "Mr. Kim would like to see you," he said. "Alone." I looked down at Hannah. "I can't leave her." "I will stay with Miss Hannah," he replied, his tone softening slightly. "She knows me." Hannah didn't protest when I explained I needed to talk to her father. She seemed to understand something serious was happening, something that involved her. I followed the hallway back to Jae-wook's office, my heart pounding. The door was open. Inside, Jae-wook stood with his back to me, looking out the window. There was no sign of Mrs. Park. "You were right," he said without turning around. She was involved. Paid to report on Hannah's schedule. To leave a service door unlocked the day of the kidnapping. By who? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Now he turned, and the expression on his face made me take a step back. It was the face of a man I'd only glimpsed until now, the man behind the rumors about K-Group's darker connections. "My sister," he said. "My half-sister wants to destroy me." And she almost succeeded. The next 3 days fell into a rhythm. Mornings with Hannah, helping her eat, bathe, and play. She still wouldn't speak, but her eyes followed me everywhere. She'd panic if I left her sight for too long. Jae-wook would appear in the evenings, exhausted but determined to spend time with his daughter. He was awkward with her, a man more comfortable in boardrooms than playrooms. But he tried. I saw that. On the 4th night, I was tucking Hannah into bed when she did something that stopped my heart. She made a small drawing motion with her hand. "You want to draw?" I asked. She nodded, the most communication she'd offered since I found her. I got her a notebook and crayons. She hunched over it, concentrating intensely. When she finished, she handed it to me. It was a crude drawing of 3 people holding hands. A tall figure in black. A small figure in pink. And a medium figure with what looked like a mop. "Is this your dad?" I pointed to the tall figure. She nodded. "And this is you?" Another nod. "And is this, me?" She nodded more vigorously. My throat tightened. She'd drawn us as a family. "It's beautiful, Hannah," I whispered. She pointed to the bottom of the page, where she'd drawn a dark square with stick figures inside. "Is this, the cage?" I asked carefully. She nodded, her eyes growing fearful. Then she pointed to a figure standing outside the cage. A stick figure with long hair. "Who's this?" I asked. She mimicked sweeping. A cleaning motion. "Another cleaner? Like me?" She shook her head violently. Then pointed to her mouth and made a zipping motion. A cleaner who told her to be quiet? Who knew she was there? Before I could ask more, the bedroom door opened. Mrs. Park stood there, eyes narrowing at the notebook in my hands. "Mr. Kim wishes to speak with you," she said coldly. "In his office." I kissed Hannah's forehead. "I'll be right back, sweetie. Try to sleep." As I walked past Mrs. Park, she grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. "Be careful what you go looking for," she whispered. "Some secrets are kept for a reason." I pulled away, suddenly certain of what I'd seen in the security footage. The face I recognized. Jae-wook was reviewing documents when I entered his office. He looked up, his expression softening slightly. "She drew something," I said, showing him the picture. "I think she's trying to tell us something about the kidnapping." His eyes narrowed at the figure outside the cage. "Who is this?" I think it might be someone who works here. Someone who was involved." He went very still. "Explain." "In your security footage from the warehouse, I saw someone I recognized. Someone who works in this building." I took a deep breath. "Mrs. Park. She was there, Jae-wook. And Hannah just drew someone who told her to be quiet. A cleaner." The change that came over him was terrifying. His face didn't move, but something behind his eyes shifted from businessman to something much darker. "How long have you known this?" he asked, his voice dangerously soft. "I wasn't certain until tonight. But she's been watching me. Warning me." He picked up his phone, pressed a single button. Minho. Mrs. Park. My office. Now. He turned to me. Wait in Hannah's room. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me. I hurried back to Hannah's room, my heart pounding. I locked the door as instructed and sat on the edge of her bed. She was already asleep, clutching her drawing. 10 minutes later, I heard shouting. A crash. Then silence. I pulled Hannah closer, preparing to hide her if necessary. When the knock finally came, I was shaking. Sarah, Jae-wook's voice. It's me. I opened the door. He stood there, his knuckles bloodied, his tie loosened. Is she? I couldn't finish the question. Being questioned, he said flatly. She was paid to give information about Hannah's schedule. She claims she didn't know what they planned to do. Do you believe her? No. The coldness in that single word chilled me to the bone. She won't be a problem anymore, he continued. But whoever is behind this is still out there. And now they know you're involved. What does that mean? It means you're in danger. It means... He hesitated. It means I need you to stay close. For Hannah. And for your own safety. Something had changed between us. The gratitude was still there, but now mixed with something else. A shared secret. A shared danger. Who would do this? I asked. Who hates you enough to hurt your daughter? His laugh was hollow. You don't get to my position without making enemies, Sarah. The list is long. But I could tell from his eyes, he knew exactly who was behind this. And he was planning something that I probably didn't want to know about. Get some rest, he said. Tomorrow will be complicated. As he turned to leave, I caught his arm. Jae-wook. Whatever you're planning, remember Hannah needs her father. Not her avenger. His eyes met mine, surprised by my boldness. Then, unexpectedly, he covered my hand with his. You see too much, Sarah Williams, he said softly. It's going to get you in trouble someday. Little did I know, someday would arrive much sooner than either of us expected. I woke to the sound of breaking glass. Hannah was still asleep beside me. I'd let her stay in my room after the confrontation with Mrs. Park. I slipped out of bed and crept to the door, listening. Voices. Angry, hissed Korean. I couldn't understand the words, but I recognized Jae-wook's voice, and his fury. Then English. A woman's voice. You can't protect her forever, Jae-wook. Either of them. I eased the door open a crack. Down the hallway, in the living room, Jae-wook stood facing a striking woman in an expensive suit. Minho and 2 other security guards flanked him, hands hovering near concealed weapons. You made a mistake coming here, Soo-min, Jae-wook said, his voice deadly quiet. I wanted to see your face, the woman replied, when you realized who really has the power in this family. Family? They were related? Taking a child? Jae-wook's voice shook with rage. My child? Your own niece? Even for you, that's low. Oh please, she scoffed. We both know what you did to get control of the company after father died. This is justice, brother. An eye for an eye. Brother and sister. This was Jae-wook's sister, Hannah's aunt. I won't let you hurt her again, Jae-wook said. Soo-min laughed. You think this is over? I have people inside your security team. Your building. Your company. People loyal to me, not you. Her voice hardened. And now I have the board's attention. Your perfect image is cracking, brother. The feared Kim Jae-wook, brought to his knees by a missing daughter and what is she? A maid? I flinched at her words. I'm giving you one chance, Jae-wook said. Leave. Never contact us again. Disappear. Or I will destroy everything you've built. Too late, she smiled coldly. The board meeting is tomorrow. By this time tomorrow night, I'll be CEO of K Group. And you'll be nothing. She turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and tell your little maid to be careful. Seoul can be so dangerous for young women alone. After she left, Jae-wook stood motionless for long minutes. Then he hurled his whiskey glass against the wall. I ducked back into my room, heart racing. I checked on Hannah, still asleep, thankfully, then sat on the edge of the bed, trying to process what I just heard. A family war. A company power struggle. And somehow, I was caught in the middle. My door opened. Jae-wook stood there, his face a mask of control that didn't match the wildness in his eyes. You heard, he said. Not a question. I nodded. She's your sister. Half-sister. He entered the room, closing the door quietly behind him. And yes, she orchestrated Hannah's kidnapping to discredit me before the board meeting. To show I'm distracted. Vulnerable. That's insane, I said. She's a child. In our world, Sarah, children are assets. Weaknesses to exploit. He sank into the chair by the window. My father taught us that. The only lesson Soo-min and I agree on. For the first time, I saw how tired he was. Not just from recent events, but from a lifetime of this. What will you do? I asked. What I must. Protect what's mine. His eyes moved to Hannah, then back to me. All that's mine. The intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. I need to ask something of you, he continued. Something unfair. What? I need you to take Hannah away from here. Tonight. Minho will escort you to a safe house outside the city. You'll stay there until this is resolved. And you? I'll handle Soo-min. And the board. What does handle mean, Jae-wook? I asked, suddenly afraid of the answer. It means I'll do what my father would have done, he said coldly. Whatever is necessary. I moved to sit across from him. Don't become the monster she thinks you are. Not for revenge. It's not revenge, Sarah. It's protection. Is it? Or is it about pride? Power? I reached for his hand. Hannah doesn't need a father who rules by fear. She needs one who breaks the cycle. He looked at our joined hands, then at me. Something shifted in his expression. Uncertainty. Hope. When did a cleaning woman become so wise? He asked softly. When a little girl in a cage reminded me what really matters, I replied. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, if I don't stop her, she'll come for Hannah again. For you. Then stop her. But not like that. I squeezed his hand. Be better than what they raised you to be. He searched my face. You really believe that's possible? After what you've seen? I believe the man who knelt on a dirty warehouse floor for his daughter can be better than his father's son. The raw vulnerability in his eyes almost broke my heart. Then, slowly, he leaned forward and pressed his forehead against mine, a gesture so intimate it made me tremble. I don't deserve your faith, he whispered. Hannah deserves a father who's worthy of her love, I whispered back. Be that man. When he pulled away, his decision was written in his eyes. Pack a bag, he said. For you and Hannah. I'll have Minho ready in an hour. As he stood to leave, I caught his sleeve. Promise me you'll come for us. When it's over. The look he gave me held something I wasn't ready to name. Something that terrified and thrilled me in equal measure. I promise, he said. And sealed it with a touch to my cheek that lingered long after he was gone. The safe house wasn't what I expected. I thought we'd be taken to some remote cabin or anonymous apartment. Instead, Minho drove us to a beautiful traditional Korean house hidden in the hills outside Seoul. This was Hannah's grandmother's home, Minho explained as he carried our bags inside. No one knows Jae-wook still owns it. Hannah seemed calmer here. She explored the garden, trailing her fingers over stone lanterns and flowering bushes. For the first time since I'd met her, she seemed like a normal child. "We'll be outside," Minho said, indicating 2 guards positioned around the property. "Do not use your phone unless it's an emergency." After he left, I tried to distract Hannah with games and books I'd packed. But my mind kept returning to Jae-wook. To the board meeting happening right now. To Sumin's threats. Night fell. Hannah finally dozed off, curled against me on the sleeping mat. I gently extracted myself and went to the porch, staring at the distant glow of Seoul below. That's when my phone vibrated. A message from Jae-wook: "Turn on the TV." I know we're at a crucial moment, but if you're enjoying this story, hit that subscribe button right now. Your support means everything, and I'd hate for you to miss the stories yet to come. Drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and let's finish this incredible tale together. I found an old television in the main room and switched it on, keeping the volume low. Breaking news: Kim Jae-wook, CEO of K-Group, had just held an emergency press conference. The footage showed him standing before a wall of reporters, his face solemn. "Today, I come before you not as CEO, but as a father," he began. "Last week, my daughter was kidnapped. Thanks to the brave actions of a young woman, she was rescued." My heart raced. Was he exposing everything? The investigation has revealed that this heinous act was orchestrated by my half-sister, Soo-min Kim, in an attempt to destabilize K-Group before our board elections. Cameras flashed as reporters shouted questions. Jae-wook raised a hand for silence. "I have provided the authorities with evidence of her involvement, including financial transactions and testimony from those she hired. As of 1 hour ago, Soo-min Kim has been taken into custody." I gasped. He'd chosen the legal route. The right way. Furthermore, he continued, "I am announcing my temporary step back from CEO duties to focus on my daughter's recovery. During this time, our CFO will assume operational control." The reporters exploded with questions. Jae-wook ignored them all, saying only, "Family must come first." "Thank you." I sat back, stunned. He'd given up power, temporarily at least, for Hannah. For us. My phone buzzed again, "Coming to you." 2 hours. I hugged myself, a strange mix of emotions swirling inside me. Relief. Pride. And something deeper I wasn't ready to name. I must have dozed off on the porch, because I woke to headlights coming up the drive. Minho appeared from the shadows, weapon drawn until he recognized the car. Jae-wook stepped out, looking exhausted but somehow lighter than I'd ever seen him. Our eyes met across the garden, and something passed between us, an understanding. A promise. But before he could reach me, another set of headlights appeared behind him. Minho tensed, moving forward. "Sir," he called. "We're not expecting anyone else." Everything happened so fast. The second car accelerated suddenly. Men jumped out, weapons drawn. Minho shouted something in Korean, pushing Jae-wook toward the house. Gunshots. Breaking glass. "Sarah." Jae-wook's voice, desperate. "Hannah." I ran back inside, my only thought to reach Hannah. She was awake, eyes wide with terror. I scooped her up and looked frantically for an escape route. The back door. I remembered seeing a path leading into the woods. "Hold tight, sweetie," I whispered to Hannah. "We need to be very quiet." I slipped out the back, clutching Hannah to my chest. Behind us, more gunshots. Men shouting. I ran blindly along the dark path, branches whipping at my face. "Keep your eyes closed," I told Hannah, who was trembling violently against me. "I've got you. I won't let go." I don't know how long we ran. My lungs burned. My arms ached from carrying Hannah. But fear drove me forward, deeper into the darkness. Finally, when I couldn't run anymore, I ducked behind a large boulder and sank to the ground, still cradling Hannah. "Shoo," I whispered into her hair. "We're safe now." But we weren't. Footsteps crunched on the path. A flashlight beam swept the trees. "I know you're out here," a woman's voice called. "Sue Min, you can't hide forever, little maid." How was she here? She was supposed to be arrested. "Come out now, and perhaps I'll let you live," she continued. "Stay hidden, and when I find you." She left the threat hanging. I looked down at Hannah, whose eyes were wide with terror. I had to protect her. No matter what. "Stay here," I whispered, tucking her behind the boulder. "Don't move until your father or I come for you. Promise me." She shook her head frantically, clutching at my shirt. "Hannah," I said firmly. "I need you to be brave. Like you were in the cage. Can you do that for me?" After a long moment, she nodded. "That's my girl," I whispered, kissing her forehead. "I'll lead her away from you. When it's quiet, count to 100, then follow the path back toward the lights. Your father will find you." I picked up a rock and threw it as far as I could in the opposite direction. When Sumin's flashlight swung that way, I darted out, making enough noise to be noticed. "There you are," she called, giving chase. I ran, forcing myself to stay just ahead, leading her away from Hannah. My foot caught on a root and I went down hard, pain shooting through my ankle. Sumin's heels crunched to a stop beside me. I looked up into the barrel of a gun. "Where is the child?" she demanded. "Safe from you," I spat. She laughed. "Such loyalty. For what? A man who sees you as nothing but a convenient nanny? Better than a woman who would hurt her own niece for power." Her face contorted with rage. She raised the gun higher. "Tell me where she is, or I'll..." A shot rang out. But it wasn't from her gun. Sumin's eyes widened in shock. She looked down at the red stain spreading across her expensive silk blouse, then crumpled to the ground. Behind her stood Jae-wook, his own gun still raised, his face a mask of cold fury. "Jae-wook," I gasped. "Hannah, she's back there. Hidden." He lowered his gun, rushing to me. "Are you hurt?" "My ankle." "But Hannah." "Min-ho," he called over his shoulder. "Find my daughter. Back up the path, behind a boulder." He knelt beside me, gathering me carefully into his arms. "I thought I'd lost you both," he whispered, his voice breaking. "When I saw her escape the police, come here." "How did you know?" I asked, wincing as he lifted me. "Tracking devices. In your phone. In Hannah's teddy bear." He looked down at me, his eyes fierce. "I will always find you. Both of you." As he carried me back toward the house, I looked over his shoulder at Sumin's still form. Min-ho was already there, checking for a pulse, calling for backup. "Is she..." I couldn't finish. "She's alive," Jae-wook said grimly. "Though she may wish she wasn't when this is over." Ahead, another security guard emerged from the trees, carrying Hannah. When she saw us, she reached out frantically. "Ddy," she croaked, her voice rusty from disuse. "Sarah." Jae-wook froze. Did she just... Tears filled my eyes. She spoke. "Daddy," Hannah said again, stronger this time. "Sarah hurt." Jae-wook's face transformed, joy breaking through the tension and fear. "Yes, Angel. But she'll be okay." We'll all be okay now. As we reached the house, now swarming with police and security, I felt the adrenaline fading, exhaustion taking its place. But through it all, one thought remained clear. This strange new family we'd formed, a powerful CEO, his once silent daughter, and a former cleaning woman, had just survived its first trial by fire. And somehow, I knew it wouldn't be the last. 3 weeks later, I stood on the balcony of Jae-wook's penthouse, watching the sun rise over Seoul. My ankle, now nearly healed, barely twinged as I leaned against the glass railing. The city below was waking up, a symphony of lights blinking off as daylight painted the skyscrapers in shades of gold and pink. So much had changed. Soo-min was in custody, facing charges that would keep her imprisoned for decades. Her network of accomplices had been rounded up, one by one, their confessions painting a picture of jealousy and ambition that had nearly destroyed a little girl's life. The board had unanimously supported Jae-wook's temporary leave of absence, impressed by his prioritization of family over power. And Hannah. Sarah. Her small voice called from inside. Come see. I smiled. These days, Hannah's voice was the sweetest sound in my world. She spoke more every day. Mostly to me, sometimes to her father. Never to strangers. But it was progress that her therapist called miraculous. The nightmares that had plagued her were less frequent now. The flinching when someone moved too quickly, almost gone. I limped back inside to find Hannah at the breakfast table, proudly showing off a drawing. This one wasn't of cages or kidnappers, but of the three of us in the garden of the traditional house, which Jae-wook had decided to keep as a weekend retreat. In her childish art style, I could see how she'd carefully given me darker skin, different from hers and her father's. She saw me, all of me. Beautiful, I told her, kissing the top of her head. Is this for your dad? She nodded enthusiastically, her pigtails bouncing. He's coming home today. Do you think he'll like it? He's going to love it, I assured her, touched by how much more she was speaking. Just a month ago, those sentences would have been impossible. Jae-wook had been in Japan for 3 days, his first business trip since the kidnapping. He'd called every night, speaking first to Hannah, then to me in conversations that grew longer and more personal each time. Last night, he'd ended our call with words that kept me awake long after. I miss you, Sarah. Not just for Hannah's sake. Min-ho, now the head of a completely restructured security team, appeared from the hallway. Mr. Kim's car has just entered the garage, Miss Williams. Thank you, Min-ho. The formality still felt strange. The staff, all new except for Min-ho, treated me with a deference I couldn't quite get used to. Was I the nanny? The friend? Something else? I wasn't sure any of us knew exactly where I fit in this world. The elevator chimed. Hannah squealed and ran to greet her father, her small feet pattering across the marble floor. I stayed behind, suddenly nervous, fidgeting with the sleeve of my blouse, a designer piece I still checked the price tag on when no one was looking. Something had been building between Jae-wook and me, unspoken but undeniable. A connection forged in crisis, yes, but deepening in the calm that followed. Glances that lingered. Conversations that stretched into the night. His hand finding reasons to touch mine. He appeared with Hannah in his arms, his usually perfect suit slightly rumpled from travel and his daughter's enthusiastic greeting. When our eyes met, his smile softened into something just for me, a private language we developed these past weeks. Sarah, he said simply, but the way he said my name had changed, like it held a meaning only we understood. Welcome back, I replied, trying to sound casual while my heart did gymnastics in my chest. Coffee? Please. The day passed in comfortable domesticity, a concept that still surprised me. Hannah showed her father her drawings, her new books, demonstrated how she could now tie her own shoes. Jae-wook listened with a patience and attention that would have shocked anyone who knew him only as the ruthless CEO. I caught him looking at me sometimes, when he thought I wouldn't notice, with a question in his eyes I wasn't sure I was ready to answer. After dinner, Hannah asked for her favorite bedtime story, a tale about a brave little fox who rescued her father from hunters. I'd made it up days after the incident at the safe house, not realizing then how it mirrored our own story. Now it was her nightly request. And the little fox and her father lived happily ever after, I finished, tucking the blanket around her. With the kind rabbit too, Hannah added sleepily. She always insisted on this addition, that the rabbit who helped them also stayed as part of their family. Yes, with the kind rabbit too, I smiled, kissing her forehead. Sweet dreams, little one. I turned to find Jae-wook leaning against the doorframe, watching us with an unreadable expression. She's out like a light, I whispered, dimming the nightlight as we stepped into the hallway. She missed you. Just her? He asked, his voice low. My cheeks warmed. No. Not just her. Later, after Hannah was deep asleep, Jae-wook found me on the balcony again. It had become our place, where we could speak freely, away from watchful eyes and small ears. He handed me a glass of wine and stood beside me, close enough that our arms almost touched. The night air was cool, the city lights below like fallen stars. She's thriving, he said. Because of you. Because of us, I corrected. You're a good father, Jae-wook. Better than you think. He was quiet for a moment, swirling the wine in his glass. In the 3 weeks I'd known him, I'd learned that his silences often preceded his most honest moments. I filed the paperwork today, he finally said. Making you Hannah's legal guardian. In case anything ever happens to me. I turned to him, stunned. Jae-wook, I trust no one else, he said simply. She loves you. And you love her. It's as simple as that. The weight of that trust, from a man who had spent his life trusting no one, left me speechless. 3 weeks ago, I'd been a stranger. Now I was being entrusted with his most precious treasure. There's something else, he continued. The university called. About your nursing program. My stomach dropped. With everything that had happened, I'd missed weeks of classes. I'd been trying not to think about it, the loans, the lost time, the future I'd worked so hard for slipping away. They've agreed to let you complete your studies with a modified schedule. Private tutoring, as we discussed. You can take your exams whenever you're ready. You arranged this? I asked. I may have made a donation, he admitted with a small smile. But your professors were already impressed with your work. This just smoothed the path. I should have felt patronized. Instead, I felt understood. He wasn't taking over my life. He was making space for my dreams alongside my new role in Hannah's life. Thank you, I said softly. We stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the city. I thought about how, just a month ago, I'd looked at these high-rises from far below, never imagining I'd be standing in one. Never imagining my life could change so completely in one night. Sarah, he began, then hesitated. Uncertainty was so foreign on him that it made my heart race. These past weeks have been transformative. For all of us, I agreed. I'm not good at this, he admitted. Expressing feelings. You don't have to. I do, he interrupted. Because you deserve to hear it. He took a deep breath. When I saw you in that warehouse, protecting my daughter like she was your own, it changed something in me. And every day since has only deepened that change. He set down his glass and took my hands in his. His palms were warm against mine, steady where I trembled. I know this is complicated. Our backgrounds, our circumstances, people will talk. The board, the press, society. Since when does Kim Jae-wook care what people think? I teased gently. That earned me a real smile, the unguarded kind I'd only seen when he was with Hannah. The smile that made him look younger, freer. Fair point, he conceded. But I care what you think. What you want. What I want. I repeated, suddenly breathless. Yes. His eyes held mine. Do you want to stay? Not just for Hannah. For this. He gestured between us. Whatever it's becoming. The question hung in the air between us, heavy with possibility, with futures I'd never imagined for myself. 3 months ago, I'd been invisible. A night cleaner struggling to pay tuition. Forgotten by professors whose classes I sometimes slept through after double shifts. Unseen by the people whose offices I cleaned. Now I stood on a penthouse balcony with one of the most powerful men in the country, a man whose daughter called my name in her sleep, whose eyes followed me like I was something precious. A man who saw me, really saw me, when I'd spent a lifetime being overlooked. I've never belonged anywhere, I said honestly. Not really. My parents died when I was 18. No siblings. No real home. Just places I passed through. His grip on my hands tightened. And now I think I might belong here, I admitted. With Hannah. With you. If that's what you're asking. It is, he said, his voice rough with emotion. That's exactly what I'm asking. Stay, Sarah. Not as Hannah's caretaker. Not as my employee. As part of this family we're building. I want to stay, I said finally. For Hannah. For my studies. And yes, for this. For us. Relief washed over his face. He stepped closer, one hand rising to cup my cheek. May I? He whispered. I nodded, and his lips met mine in a kiss that felt like a promise, gentle but certain, like everything worth having in this world. His arms encircled me, pulling me closer, and I felt something I'd been missing my entire life, the feeling of coming home. When we parted, I couldn't help but laugh softly. What? He asked, smiling against my lips. Just thinking about how this started. With a locked door I shouldn't have opened. I'm very glad you did, he murmured, pulling me closer. That door led you to us. Over his shoulder, I could see into Hannah's room, where she slept peacefully, her nightmares finally beginning to fade. Beyond that, the city stretched out, glittering with lights and possibilities I'd never dared imagine for myself. You know, I said, thinking of the bedtime story, Hannah always insists that the rabbit stays with the fox family. He brushed a strand of hair from my face. Smart girl. She knows a good thing when she sees it. Life had thrust me through a door I was never meant to open, into a world I was never meant to enter. But standing here now, in the arms of a man who looked at me like I was everything he'd been searching for, I knew I'd finally found where I belonged. Not in the shadows. Not in the invisible spaces. But here, in the light, with a family I'd found by chance and chosen by choice. So am I whispered back. So am I. If you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss my new uploads. Your comments mean the world to me, so let me know what you thought below. What was your favorite part? Would you like to see more stories like this? I have so many more tales waiting to be told, and I can't wait to share them with you. See you in our next story.